All right. We'll open the meeting of the Scituate Board of Health, Monday, March 9th, 2015, in the Selectmen's Chambers, Town Hall, 7 p.m. I'll take a...
Make a motion to accept the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Seeing how the clock on the wall says 7 o'clock, we'll go discuss 17 Collier Ave, septic system design, Greg Morse, Morse Engineering, representing homeowner.
My name's Steve Hassett, I'm an engineer, Morse Engineering.
All right.
So I'm representing the homeowner, John Powers, and we're here to present the septic system repair plan at 17 Collier Ave. On the property, there's a 5-bedroom, single-family dwelling with a driveway along the right side and a garage in the back. The house is currently serviced by 2 cesspools, which are backing up and need to be replaced. So we proposed a new system. We're gonna put a 1,500-gallon septic tank in the back behind the house. This is where the plumbing exits the house now. From there, we're gonna run a 4-inch pipe around the house to the front yard where we have a D-box and a leaching field in the front yard. There's very limited space on this site, so in order to do this, we had to ask for 4 local upgrades. The first is a size reduction. It's a 5-bedroom house, so it's a very big field to begin with. And then once you factor in the setbacks to the property line, the house, all of that, we're left with the 9,000 square feet. So he asked for a 22.5% size reduction of the field. The second upgrade, we asked for a reduction to the property line from 10 feet to 6 feet. It's the property line in the front along the road. Thirdly, we asked for a setback reduction to the cellar wall crawl space from 20 feet to 11 feet. We've proposed a breakout barrier along that side of the leaching field, so there's no concerns for breakout. Also, this is a low crawl space. It's pretty much inside the crawl space is about level with the grading outside. So our system's down 2.5 feet below the ground surface, so it's well below the level beneath the house. And the fourth upgrade is we're proposing to reroute the water service around the leaching field, and we're able to keep it 5 or 10 feet off the leaching field all the way around, but eventually we have to cross that sewer line where it enters on the left. So we're gonna ask for a reduction across the sewer line, and we've proposed it to be sleeved within 10 feet of that crossing, so there's no risk of any effluent leaking out of the pipe and affecting the water service. And that's about all. We've considered placing in the back as well from the very beginning. We even did test pits back there from day one. Once we got all of our results and the survey done, we found once you factor in, you have to be 10 feet off the garage, supposed to be 20 off the house, 10 off a property line. And then with the driveway there as well, it really limits the space. And then
The driveway comes in.
Yeah, that's it.
yeah, it's over here. Yep. So there's a fence that goes right through that proposed septic tank. See the edge of pavement right there?
Yeah.
So this is the driveway. This house actually shares a driveway coming up the property. They share a driveway, then when it hits that hedgerow, it splits into 2. So they share the beginning portion of the driveway with the neighbors.
Tight quarters.
And was there, you say that, were there test pits that go back?
Yeah, so we realized one really long one here. And we found good soil in the front and the back. It's all less than 2 minutes an inch.
Are there garage doors here?
No, this is the driveway coming in here. Comes in like that.
And then there's garage doors here?
Yeah, exactly. I think there's just a standard door on this side. Especially when you factor in you have to fit that septic tank in as well. We just found it more feasible to put in the front yard. So, do you have any questions?
Jen, your first correspondence with Greg, you had a couple things that he was changing, correct?
Yeah, so there were a couple of minor edits about perk rates and adding a note. This plan, Steve said, that he brought in tonight addresses those couple of comments.
Yeah.
The third comment question is one of the two reasons why it's before you. It's one, there's 4 local upgrade requests as opposed to the typical, 1 or 2. The fact that the engineering department wondered why at least a portion of the driveway wasn't sacrificed in lieu of crossing the sewer line, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the only outstanding comment that was part of typical review.
And what was Greg's response to that about that question? Why the driveway wasn't sacrificed?
We don't want to rip up the driveway because, well, Title V says to don't put it under a driveway
Right.
wherever it's avoidable.
And it's paved, I see, right? Edge of-
And it's paved. The owner was already concerned about the driveway. We used a plastic tank because he didn't want to have one of those trucks delivering the septic tanks come up his driveway. So he's already concerned about it, so. And then
Do you have any dimensions on the house?
I don't. There is a scale down here on the bottom. I didn't bring a scale
Well,
with
I'm
me.
more just looking for the layout, I mean.
It's on the-
Oh, no, that's not to scale up here.
No, I know that.
Yeah.
It just seems like there's 5 bedrooms kind of mashed in there upstairs.
Judging by the area this is in, this is probably an old summer house converted, and that's just the way it is.
You kind of see how they converted old porches into or decks and, yeah. And I don't think the size reduction is an issue either, because we had a very good perk rate, so it's less than 2 minutes an inch.
What's the distance between the tank pumping to the front of the house? The distance, that 4-inch pipe?
It's about 100 feet. And it's not, it flows by gravity the entire distance.
Oh, that's gravity?
Yeah,
So there's no pump there at all?
no pump.
This is a local upgrade on the water service crossing the sewer pipe. Does Title V allow it to go to cross?
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as you sleeved and filled with concrete.
Okay, that's what I
Yeah,
thought.
so they put the water service in another pipe
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
no, that's,
fix it.
I think in lieu of Title V, with the system being under the driveway and the inconvenience it would be to construct it, I think you've done the best you can do.
Yeah, and also we have the existing cesspool in the back, so we'd have to remove all that sand, whereas in the front yard, yeah, there's 2, one's in the driveway. And in the front yard, we don't need any sand.
That was paved over already?
There's a rim in the pavement.
Yeah, that's-
Yeah.
Better than what they have there now, I'm
Yeah.
sure. So I have no further.
That cesspool is filled to the rim, so.
That's all set?
Yeah, well, it's, you make the best of a bad situation. Make a motion to approve the septic design for 17 Collier with the 4 upgrades that's being requested.
Does that need a deed restriction with the reduction in size? I mean, you're not gonna go any bigger than 5 bedrooms,
Yeah.
I'm sure, but,
With any upgrade, you need the deed restriction.
okay.
Yeah.
So second, all those in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Everybody all set? Get the composure back?
What's that?
Everybody all set? Composure's back? 63 Ocean Drive, housing issue. For discussion.
So I just wanted to bring you gentlemen up to speed on what had happened last week, since I was trying to keep you in the loop. So there has been an ongoing landlord-occupant dispute that began in the beginning of, well, actually the end of December. Water service had been disrupted February 16th briefly with a water pipe breaking. The dispute entailed the tenant, per their rental agreement, was responsible for putting oil in the oil tank, which is a requirement under the housing code. The landlord was responsible for providing water to the house. So the pipe broke on February 16th, was repaired. The occupant family was out of the house for a couple of days. Water service restored, moved back in. On Sunday, the 22nd, a more significant pipe broke, and it broke before the internal shut-off in the house. So the water department was called down on an emergency basis. They couldn't access the external shut-off, so the water department crimped the line to either slow it down or stop the water entirely. The home was without water. The occupants indicated that they would be moved out in temporary housing in a hotel until the water was restored. The landlords indicated that they would have water service out there as soon as possible. The town went on the Wednesday and was able to excavate and replace the external shut-off so that the repairs could be made in the house by the landlord's plumber. That did not occur as of Friday, the 27th, or 26th. And the occupant said, we're moving back in regardless of the water service. The landlord said, well, we're not restoring water until you pay for oil. So that initiated actions to deem the property unfit for human habitation, order to condemn, order to vacate. While that was ongoing over the weekend, the landlords had a change of heart, said that they would restore water service, started those actions on Monday. And when they weren't complete, we reinitiated means to order the house unfit. So we did order the house unfit under the emergency provisions of the housing code and notified each of you according to Mass General Law. This was on Wednesday.
Now, unfit means condemned, uninhabitable.
So there's 3 steps. Typically, the first step is unfit for human habitation. At that same time, or some point after, you can also issue an order to condemn and an order to vacate. In this case, we did all 3 at once because there did not seem to be progress being made, and the occupant family had decided that they were going to move, that they were going to be there regardless of water service. So we did all 3 at once, gave them 48 hours to vacate on the advice of the state. Water service was restored actually later that day, so I rescinded the order on Friday at the end of that 48-hour period, just making sure that they retained water service, that there wasn't some subsequent break or subsequent blockage after the water got restored. Because obviously, you know, whenever there's a home without water for an extended period of time, there could be additional freezing in the lines somewhere else in the house that you don't realize until the water comes back on. So we haven't heard from any of the parties involved since Wednesday when the water was restored. The water department confirmed that they still do have water. So at this point, the issue is closed from our point of view, but just wanted to.
Nice job on
Yeah,
that.
excellent.
That's that one. Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, no, just a comment that you did an excellent job, and I like the swiftness of your move to put it to rest. Thank you. Item number 4, discuss development of private well regulations. I did get a chance to read through them. It was one of the few things I did, but I made a point to do it because we're getting down to the end here, and you put a lot of effort into this, and I wouldn't disrespect you by not. I had a few minor things.
Sure.
And they're for discussion too. But your job has been wonderful putting this together, so. I mean, I guess I can start if you want, and you guys can follow in afterwards, or however. I have a list of minor things.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think on the terms, definitions.
Yeah.
Dwelling, a privately or publicly owned permanently fixed structure containing a dwelling unit or dwelling units. I just was wondering if there's a better way to define that instead of using the word that's being defined. I remember somewhere in school learning that was never a good way to do
That
that.
is a good. We can steal that from Marshfield.
Well, a living, you could put living.
Well, I saw somewhere too, and I think it's later on, was abode, something like that. I'll have to look through my notes, but I remember seeing that further down the line, abode.
And I can look at the housing code to see how they formally define dwelling.
And believe me, probably most of the stuff is not a deal breaker. It was just stuff that I read through.
Oh, please, I'm too close to it to see.
Foundation wall, a wall below the floor nearest grade serving as a support for a wall, pier, column, or other structure part of a building. That just doesn't sound right to me, and I was actually, Mike, thinking of you. Does that sound right to you in the construction world? Is there a better way to define again, foundation wall? To me, it's just it didn't quite sound right. Wall below the floor nearest grade serving as a support for a wall.
Yeah, I mean, it does bring out the support. I mean, I guess,
How about, instead of foundation wall, you just make it foundation? So foundation, a wall below the floor nearest grade.
yeah,
Making a foundation wall, you just
that-
make it.
Foundation, yeah.
yeah, that'd be nice, that'd be a nice way to do that, actually.
Yeah.
Well, do we want to, okay, so back to the dwelling.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to leave that as a question, we're going to put abode or living, is that what?
Something, I think I might pick it up even later on, but
Okay.
again, just something that, I don't know if it needs to be rediscussed or my point or it could stay the same. I just thought, again, that just sounded like,
Yeah, no, I can look for a better definition and then when we
Yeah.
reconvene, you know, tell you what that, or I can send you
yeah,
a
I don't think it
revised
needs to be
document.
remet on or, like I say, it's just something I saw. The next one was irrigation well, and believe me, this isn't gonna go to every one of them, it just happened to be a cluster of them right here. Irrigation well, I was almost thinking irrigation well / non-potable well. Because again, I think I see somewhere else in here where it's referred to that way, and I'd like to keep things consistent.
Okay.
Yeah, well, along those same lines, these shall not be connected at any point in time to a dwelling or a building. Well, sometimes they do have to go through sort of a, an electronic system that is in a building, that gives the timing. If they had sprinklers on it, it would be a box that could sit in the garage or the basement.
Really? Okay.
Well, how else are you gonna operate the irrigation well?
They're standalone now, so they stand alone, come up to the bladder pumps over, I don't know if it's inside or outside, or the bladder pumps over to the sprinklers or the irrigation system that's usually sitting in the middle of the field, right?
Well, if you attach it to a sprinkler system, how do you operate, how do you set the time, you have a little box that operates it,
Which isn't, yes,
which is attached to the bill, I mean, just a little nuance, I mean,
So maybe it can be, these shall not provide water at any point in time to a dwelling or building. Maybe that. Because the whole idea with the connection is that you're not allowing the water to be used
Yes.
either accidentally or on purpose for a potable water supply.
Right, and somewhere in here it
So-
says it has to be posted that it's
Right.
it's an irrigation well or a.
Or drinking well.
Yeah. So if certain components could be connected in order to operate, then maybe, you know, these shall not, let's just kind of play with this, shall not provide
And I think, right,
drinking water at any point in time to a dwelling, blah, blah, blah. So it makes that same point, the idea that you're trying to allow, you know, to allow a
Yeah, yeah,
connection and
yeah.
the ability to work it without serving the house itself with water.
Yep.
Okay.
and I think I picked that irrigation well / non-potable well because further down it says non-potable well, and I was just gonna say non-potable well / irrigation well. They're almost saying the same thing.
So combine the two definitions as well.
Maybe you could and eliminate one, but it would be non-potable well / irrigation or irrigation well / non-potable.
Yeah.
It just, and then lot, where it says lot, I have a note here, and I'm not sure, but on the note I wrote a parcel of land that legally supports a business or dwelling. And I can't remember if I meant that to be inserted in there, or maybe that might be the definition of the lot. Oh, we look at the definition of the lot from a, but when we're talking wells, I think somewhere in here it says you can't just put a well on any old lot. If I owned a lot of 5,000 square feet, I can't just chunk a well on it to have a well. So I think that's where the definition of lot came in. To my mind, is a parcel of land that legally supports a business or dwelling. And again, I'm not an attorney, nor have I ever played one on TV.
Well, you could get into a situation where somebody owns the lot next door to their dwelling unit, and they want to use that lot with a well and for the irrigation. I mean, you can get into I bet you there's a fair amount of situations like that.
Something where you give me an easement for water rights.
Well, either that, or you truly own the lot next door,
And you're using it.
and you're putting the well on the lot, instead of
Oh, right,
Instead of combining the lots.
Right.
And that can be, they can request a variance or something like that.
Yeah, that gets into almost a zoning issue as well. I mean, that's,
And that might be something that maybe when the zoning looks at it, we don't have to change it now, but you could highlight it and say, geez, could you particularly pay attention to this one? Just because there was a small discussion about it, and maybe you guys can give us the answer. And I think that's why I brought the point up more, just to let another board look at it.
We can ask the assessors too what a legal definition of a lot is.
Yeah. Now, on the next one for potable well, potable water supply, down the bottom, it says a source shall be deemed potable if it meets at a minimum all the current primary drinking water standards. And I was gonna insert in there, as per state of Mass law, whatever it is. I don't know if that's a good addition in there or not, but
As per current.
as per current state of Massachusetts, chapter and verse. Still on definitions, public water supply, and the definition says water provided by the town of Scituate. And again, that definition, I think, could be redefined a little better. Now, this isn't exact, it's just off the top of my mind. An area intended for the use of the inhabitants of Scituate for supplying water. I'm not sure if that makes sense or not, or if we even need to change it. It just something didn't sound right there. I mean, water provided by the town of Scituate, public water supply. Just something doesn't ring there, I don't know why. Water provided by the town of Scituate, public water supply. It's kind of like a pond or an aquifer or something, but that's intended for the, maybe I'm reading into it too far, I don't know.
I'll look for a way to better define that and talk with the water department and say, how do
Well, public
they
water
provide their
supply is
service?
kind of general and vague. It's maybe just not.
Maybe it's intended to read that way and keep it general and vague. It seemed to
Okay.
me like it was too vague, though.
Okay.
I mean, and again, maybe that's, my concern is I can't answer it, but there's somebody that could probably answer that maybe a
Water
little better.
provided by municipalities such as the town of Scituate.
Yeah, a land area or something. And then dropping down to well, I think when I read that, I had a question. Is the term well solely potable?
No.
To be used for any purpose of supplying potable water in the town. And I think that's what you read through. And that again comes down to splitting the definition of potable to irrigation.
So potable / irrigation.
Okay, now, heading over to 3.05, proof that the owner of any property within 250 feet. I think I put 200 feet down, only because if you go up to the writing in black, everything is in 200 feet. And again, it could stay 250, it just seemed that everything was 200, 200.
So consistency purposes.
Exactly, exactly. Is there a reason we're going the extra 50 feet to notify people if they're not on the plan? And there could be a very good reason for that, I'm just not seeing it. If there's not, then I would keep it consistent to 200.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, good.
Now, the next one is down to 3.6. A permit shall be obtained prior to installation, reconstruction, or repair. What's the difference? My question is, what's the difference between reconstruction and repair? And I think somewhere later on in here, there was another term used for almost like redevelopment. It's gonna come up pretty soon, but again, it's just definition of words.
So just prior to installation and/or repair. Right?
I think, I don't know, I kind of have it as a question mark, I don't know the answer, I'm just raising the question. Is there a difference between reconstruction and repair? Installation, reconstruction, and repair. You know, it's almost like septic systems, you put a brand new septic system in, but it's actually a repair,
Right.
like we just did.
Yep.
That's considered a repair, but it's, you know,
All right,
really
so
it's a new
we'll-
system.
We'll limit the descriptions of installation or repair. But can we back up to 3.5?
Yep.
Because, Mike, the last time we were here, you wanted to think about whether the permits are transferable or not. That was something that you had mentioned, so I thought we could revisit that.
Do you want to talk about that now?
Well, on 3.7, you say that it expires, you know, it's good for a year.
Right.
I didn't really think about that,
Well,
but I
is-
mean, we can talk about it
Well,
now.
is the septic system, is the septic permit transferable?
I would think a well should be too, because
That's my point.
if you get all the permits in place and I sell you the property with permits, I mean, that would kind of suck that, wow, this one's good, but this one's not, and that one we're not sure.
Makes sense?
Yeah, it should be a
Okay,
bundle
so let's strike
package.
that one.
Okay. 4.0, line, actually 4.4, line 6, building, I was just gonna add building foundation, and I think that's a 10-foot setback. And now you could define foundation wall, I think in Title V, it's actually the inside wall. I don't know if we need to be that nitpicky here, I don't, but I think instead of building, it should be building foundation. That way, if there's a porch or something, we're not holding it to the porch, or is it an enclosed porch, is that part of the building? Just call it the foundation,
Okay.
if you guys are agree with that. I'm just, like I say, I'm just throwing ideas out there. Not gonna offend me if you dispute. Use of well as a potable supply. If a property is served by the public water supply, then a potable well may not be installed. My only comment here was topic of discussion. That seemed something that could catch. I think you had brought that up before on 5.0.
We talked about that last time.
Yeah, Did we ever come to a decision, though, that, I think you had mentioned it as well, that you should have the right?
Sean, what do you think about that?
I would think so. I would think a person would have the right to drill a well, even if they have water service.
So a person could use the water from the town and water from the well to drink.
Well, is it both? Is it an and or is it an or? Right now, it's an or.
In most places, it's an or. You either serve your property with town water through a pipe, or you serve your property with your own well.
You'd have to, because I think that's, again, gonna go back to somewhere in here where you have to be very careful of cross-contamination. You can't
And
have the
that's-
plumbing is the same, it's either one or the other.
And that's what this statement is trying to say, and apparently not very good, but it's trying to say you can have one or the other.
So if I have a well, and then I have town water brought in, I have to abandon the well, or can I make it for?
Irrigation.
Or you can make it irrigation.
Yeah, you can make it irrigation, for sure, yeah.
Which
Yeah.
means you would have to prevent its use in the house.
Right.
Well, let me go back to you first. And I'm not disagreeing with you. Why do you have a right to have a well if you are serviced by public
I
water?
just, Steve asked, and I just thought, wouldn't it be every homeowner's right to have both? But I'm not familiar with well regulations, but if they exist in other towns, if you have to have one or the other, then I'm not hung up on it.
Yeah, because the question is, if you were in the zone 2 and you were dropping well and you were sucking the water from
From the
the,
aquifer or.
It's the same water.
Compromising.
You're just cutting the town out of
Right.
their, you're cutting the town out of their paycheck.
Right, or, drawing too much, whatever the case is. So,
well, I'll bring out the example I'm familiar with in the town. So one of these people who supplies water for pools, these big tanker trucks,
right.
their wells are located right next to the town reservoir. Like, it's kind of a joke that they're just drilling down, sucking up the town water, and then putting it in tankers, and then charging people money to. Yeah, no, it pre-existed. I mean, I think it was a family business that goes way, way back, but it's a big example of do you want to be drawing on the town water supply? Or are you going to allow it if you are serviced by town water?
Well, that's it, the town paid to put that infrastructure in, and part of their payment of putting the infrastructure in is collecting the fee for the water that they're supplying for your house.
I'm just bringing up the question.
So.
No, I know it, it's a debatable argument for sure, and I can understand both sides. Yeah, I'm a property owner, I should have the right to either supply my own water or purchase from the town, but, the town did put that infrastructure in, and they're looking for a return on their investment, which is fine, that's.
Well, I don't necessarily have an issue with cutting out the town, it's more of, are you creating a health issue?
And are you double dipping for the water supply?
Because,
part of this is to know where the water's coming from and to know how much water's being drawn. I mean, it's all the same water supply. So do you have, 100 houses now taking from the water supply twice?
With the potential of contaminating it for whatever reason. And if
Right,
you had
right,
if you put a well in Greenbush, because you had a right to.
Well.
And I thank you for putting me back on track, because you're absolutely right, this is a health issue, and that question might be posed to the water department or someone else, and it might be out of our privy if it's
But you say.
not a health issue,
but
the way
you-
I'm looking at it anyways. And
Well,
thank
we
you
make
for-
it, we
for bringing
determine
it up.
whether it's a health issue or not.
Right.
If you put a well in Greenbush and then somebody, not nefarious, if it somehow gets contaminated, you have contaminated the public drinking supply. So therefore,
Unless it had a backflow preventer.
well, yeah, I mean, there's also,
They own it.
there's pages of
How to construct it.
well, how to construct it and testing and all that, but the point is that you still,
Possible.
you're leaving the potential.
That's right.
Whereas if you
Especially
didn't allow them to begin with, you wouldn't even get to that potential.
So if somebody's been on town water for 10 years and now we have all these fees coming down the road and they say, you want to know what, I'm going to try and supply my family with my own water, they have to shut themselves off from town, make it a permanent shut off. So you can't just make it a ball valve to shut it on and off. And then that has to be inspected by whomever it may be to be able to switch over to, they install the well X amount of dollars and so on and so forth. that has to be a permanent thing, which means it has to be monitored, correct? In order to keep everybody on the up and up.
Yeah, well, I mean, besides the monitoring, that's what we have now, and that was the case up in Glades. They tried to create a well that, you know, that they didn't have rights to creating the well because it was near the septic system. And then we ordered the court, us and then the court ordered them to disconnect the well and reattach to town water.
So it's and or.
No, it's just an or.
Oh, just as or, right.
And if we even want to make it an or.
Well, then you're getting into people's rights, so why can't they, if they want to drill, somebody has a big piece of property, why can't they do that? They
As
can't.
Mike brought up earlier, and it was a good point, he reminded me, that's almost out of the purview of the health department. We're looking at it from a health standpoint,
Okay.
not rights. And thank you for putting the compass needle back to true north. And again, that might be a question that when we have these other boards that we mentioned, Conservation, DPW, Water Department, Sewer Department, you may want to highlight that one for the Water Department to say, what is your reason? I'd love your health reason, that if we pop a well in somewhere, there's a possible another source of contamination.
Well, it's just like there's septic restrictions in Zone 2.
Right,
Well, they're there for a reason, because it's a Zone 2.
right. Protect the public water supply.
So I feel like we're talking about two issues in this mini discussion. One is, do we allow private wells within a zone 2? That seems to be one question that's come up. And then also, you know, this, you can have one but not the other. You know, pick one. So are we in agreement of the pick one? You can have one or the other? Or no?
Well, from this conversation we're having is that nobody will be allowed to, because if we're gonna go by the Board of Health, which we are, and we're worried about contamination anywhere, then we're not gonna allow anybody to drill a well unless it's new digs from wherever.
No, unless they're not in the Zone 2.
Right.
For irrigation, though.
Irrigation, yes, but we're talking about potable, we're
Right.
talking about drinking water. So somebody like we were talking about, you know, somebody, we're doing all this work in town, somebody doesn't want to pay the tariff on the water bill that everyone's going to have for the X amount of years, and somebody decides to put a private drinking well in. Are we going to now, because it may become a health issue depending on where they are, not allow that? Because if that's the case, then a lot of this is moving.
I said that.
A lot of this is moving. Especially-
Well, how different is it then? We have there are state restrictions on putting the septic systems in Zone 2s.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of restrictions. So my guess is we're probably gonna have a lot of people sitting before us. Right?
Doing what?
Sitting before us, wanting to, you know, if they're borderline zone 2 or wherever they may be, they want to, again, take advantage of using a well because of the bills that they may be getting. You know, she may deny it first, and then they may come before us, and then we're back. It's a good deal.
Well, I don't think Zone 2 is nebulous. It's you're either in it or you're not.
Okay, all right. But there's a ton of different other places around town that may or may not be close to something, you know, I mean, we just don't know. We don't know when somebody's gonna decide to put one in until that happens. So again, it's back to a one point that if we make it that difficult, and this, you know, a lot of these regulations.
Yeah, why have them?
Oh, why have
You can't put the well in anyway.
If
so-
we're not gonna, right, I mean, if we're gonna go to the letter of the law and say, okay, for the Board of Health reasons, they can't drill it out because they may contaminate it, which they may not, they may, who knows, then we're doing this all for naught. You know what I mean? We might as well just make it for irrigation and say, for irrigation, you can't have any drinking water in the town because of our locale.
That is an issue I raised at the beginning.
I know.
And I think there's going to be a
Now
lot
we're
more.
talking about
I think the potable wells are not going to be there's not going to be a stampede of potable wells.
I hope so.
But I do think there may be a stampede for irrigation wells.
Yeah.
And
The water supply should be pretty high this year.
You would think.
But that's this year. We're looking at the future.
Have you had John Clarkson in at all in any of these meetings when you talk about wells from the water?
They've all been publicly advertised, but
Right.
the discussion last meeting was, there's a good 7 boards here that, once we hammer it out, and again, as I've said earlier, to highlight a few, they're gonna go out to the other boards for their review at their meetings.
I didn't think you mentioned his committee, water resource committee, I mean, they're the experts on water and.
Yeah,
John knows this is coming. I sat in on one of their meetings several weeks ago on another issue. And this general topic came up, and I said, well, since you're talking about it, my board is in the process of drafting these regulations, we're gonna request your input. And he was already brainstorming about certain things that he'd like to see, and they were on the engineering level in terms of flow restrictions, flow limitations, total quantity that you could pump in a day. So he's already got the wheels turning, because he knows this is coming.
He's the expert.
yeah. I think what we have here, the list I have, and it might not be accurate, but I have Conservation, DPW, Water Department, Sewer Department, Water Resource Commission, North-South River Watershed Association, Town Administrator, and Select. So if we get ours done here and then put it out and come back in a month and say, okay, now here's the comments from these boards, let's rework it, but at least we'll have a really good solid framework.
And zoning building is the one not on that list that will be added to the list.
Zoning building.
Because we have a reciprocal review process where we sign off on building permits based on septic, so this would be likewise.
You guys want to go further on that discussion? We want
No.
to see how it goes through a review with the other boards and?
No, we'll just make it or, make it
Okay,
or,
okay.
you know,
We'll leave it as or.
yeah.
I'm in agreement with that.
Or just, leaving it the way it is. If a property is served by the public water supply, then a potable private well may not be installed.
That would only be for new construction, probably, out in my opinion,
Yeah,
out
make
west
that
end.
bold, may not, bold. Next.
6.0, private well registration, this I think is a simple typo. Down the bottom, second line from the bottom, map and parcel number
Oops, yeah.
from. Now, 8.4, I'm not going to read it all. I had the whole thing in parentheses, and my note was not consistent with 4.0. Maybe mention 8.4 in 4.0.
See, 8.4 brings up a good point too. When a private well is located in a floodplain, the well casing shall extend at least 2 feet above the level of the highest recorded flood level.
Yeah, I like that in there. Yeah. Yeah, for sure, and that's not in 4.0. That's why I say not consistent.
So 4.0 is about setbacks and locations.
Yeah, this is under construction.
So this is under construction in terms of well height.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you want to combine them, is that what you said?
I don't know about combining the two, but they didn't seem quite as consistent as they could be, and that's why I said maybe mention 8.4 and 4.0, just to see that the siting and the construction, because they talk very similar of the same stuff, the floodplain, and then you have floodplain construction, and I'd have to go back and look at it a little more, but I think when I read something like this, it's, again, the consistency. You hate to,
Bounce all over the place.
But, well, bounce all over the place and have one loose definition, and then that's one more defined, because someone might look at it and say, well, here it says this, but here it says that.
So are you saying, so 8.4 and 4.7, is that what you're saying?
And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier in 4.0, a well must be located on the lot it serves. I just switched total gears there, just went back to a discussion we had earlier.
So you're for
More than
three,
one lot
okay.
prohibited.
So you're saying
4.7 is just kind of redundant to,
to 8.4?
well, yeah, when private wells located in floodplain locations shall extend at least 2 feet above the highest level of the flood level.
Right.
It's just kind of redundant. You know, the top of the well should be higher than any surface of contamination and other than conditions of flooding by drainage or runoff. You could combine them, you could take 4.7 and put it into 8.0 and combine the sentence. Right?
I think so, that's, yes, yeah.
All right, so we're into section 8.
Yeah, just add it
And
to the,
combine.
yeah,
With 8.4.
yeah,
Okay,
that's,
got it.
8.7, this goes to something that I think I was saying earlier. All wells should be disinfected following construction, rehabilitation, following construction, rehabilitation, and well pump repair. So again, rehabilitation, question, reconstruction, C 3.6. It's another word, and they're all great words.
So we strike the word rehabilitation. Keep it consistent.
Consistent.
What we did before, yep.
Yeah, or following construction or reconstruction, or something, yeah. However that makes it consistent. Or use the word rehabilitation on the other one, I don't know, that's a nice word too. It's just, yeah, consistency.
Okay.
8.10, a final as-built plan with measurement ties must be submitted with the well drill's installation log certification prior to issuance of certificate of compliance with Board of Health. I have no problem with that. The thing I think it should be further defined is measurement ties should be building corners, lot corners, range lines off of buildings or property line, or other more permanent features. I hate to go back to colonial days by 20 feet off the old oak tree and 10 feet off the boulder that Farmer Smith plowed up and whatever, because 30 years from then, no one's gonna know what oak tree or boulder we're talking about, at least if we have a property corner or a building off of the barn or off of the
some sort of
off of the
boundary
dwelling.
line, some sort of boundary.
Some permanent, as permanent as you can get, you know. I think it should just be defined a little better. I think any surveyor or anybody would know that, but again, I hate to see it swung off a tree or some land feature that's, who knows what it is.
So you just had a nice addition defining it.
Oh, measurement ties should be building corners, lot corners, range lines off of buildings or property line, or other more permanent features. And we can massage that in there, I'm sure. And then 9.42. This may be addressed in 10.0. I came back to it, I think. This report shall be furnished to the buyer prior to closing. And again, I think this was addressed in 10.0. That would have been my note, and then as I read on, I came back to it. I think it's just a matter of adding it to the buyer beforehand, because it says prior to selling, conveying, transferring title. It doesn't really say, it just says the owner shall have the thing done. So it's not, the owner has it done and he's not giving it to anybody. And then again, 10.2 refers back to 9.4.2. Now moving along to 12.2, cisterns shall be prohibited. I don't think we had a definition of a cistern. 12.9, and I'm sorry, I didn't look to see where it was. I must have kept reading on. Water from a private well shall not be used as swimming pool water unless it meets the requirements of section 5.2. Maybe it was mentioned in 5.2, but I had a note this is mentioned elsewhere, so it might be redundant, I'm not sure, but maybe it belongs in prohibitions. But it says here, section
5.5 says water from the private well shall not be used for swimming pool water unless it meets the requirement of section 5.2 above. So 5.5 says that.
Yeah. So do we need to keep it in 12.9 or?
You know, that's kind of funny, mine fell out too.
No, water from private wells shall not be used as a swimming pool.
This is like in, you know, space age type, so it fits everything on there too. I know, mine didn't print it either, it's kind of weird. Water from private
Did you-
well should not be used.
So you enlarged it?
No, it's the way it printed from the
Yeah.
Word document.
Oh, mine, I did like that.
Yours printed like that?
Yeah.
That's kind of strange. And yours printed like,
Yeah, like yours.
that's kind of weird.
Right, so somewhere there's a 12.9 that you and I don't have.
Yes, but he is right, it's redundant again.
Okay.
5.5 and 12.9, it says water from the private well should not be used as swimming pool water, and they both refer back to 5.2. Honestly, I don't have a problem with it in both places, to be honest with you. Do you have a problem with that?
I don't, it just brought it up, you know?
I think I put it in both because some people like to put blinders on and they look to the one section that they think might be
Prohibitions.
applicable.
That's what I
And
mean.
then they don't see it, you know, if it's only in 5 or only in 12, you know, they see what they want to see by looking at that section. So that's why in some cases I did intentionally overlap, whether that's the best way to go or not, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's consistent, so it's fine with me. That's fine. 13.0, actually 13.2, I think we have another 250 foot in there, and we can change that to 200. And, okay, now 14.6A, by leaving a copy of the order at his last and usual place, I put in of habitation or abode, or, goes to section C. I think that's back where we talked about dwelling. So could a definition of a dwelling be a place of habitation, or the dwelling is an abode? We talked about the definition, so.
Just pick a word and use it for.
Pick a word and use it throughout, and keep it consistent, exactly. And, thank you for your patience. I'm done.
Anything else?
Was everybody okay with the fees and the penalties and everything? We never really discussed monetary, yes, no, maybe.
You're talking the $500, I mean you're talking 17?
Yeah.
I think I left it just the way it was. I didn't really question it.
And you had a sheet of you drew up a
Yeah, no,
regulation permit, correct?
Yep, permit and checklist. And the permit fee is $150, I believe we
yeah,
agreed
I
upon.
guess that's like,
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Was the permit, the 150 not in these regs?
I don't remember seeing any money except for in the
penalties.
in the
I
penalties.
left it, I think, as current, you know, fee current as blah, 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 so if we ever changed it, we didn't have to go back in and change the regs. So let me see. Plan, non-refund, so it's 3.2, number 6, a non-refundable permit fee as established by the board. And I left it without the money so that if in fact we ever increased it or decreased it, we didn't have to change the regulations themselves, we would just need to change the application. And the non-refundable fee is a cost was added per your comment.
And we figured that covers
Yeah.
office expense for review and filing and everything, and it's a fair price.
Consistent with septic, and we are requesting a lot of information.
And then which
as
is
part of the
requires a lot of
package.
review, yeah.
Michael just-
I have no problem with it, that, it seems
Yeah.
consistent to me, and as long as we're not gouging nor selling ourselves short.
It seems to be pretty consistent with other towns as well. They tend to be between $50 and $200 for their fee. And last time you had asked, why so broad a 500-foot radius looking for contamination? And I thought about it afterwards to try to remind myself why I picked that. And it's because 500 feet around a private drinking water well is considered a GW1 area. So if you clean up a site and it's within 500 feet of a well, you have to clean up your site to drinking water, groundwater standards. So that's why I picked it, so that, if you're next door to an old golf course that, used arsenic as part of their pesticide treatment, we would be able to capture that source.
I think as I read through it, I
So,
understand the strength or the weight of what you were talking about, as I read through it when you started talking farm.
But where on file is that golf course arsenic contamination?
So.
Similar to a 21E that's done?
Yeah, so as part of this process, an applicant or their representative is required to do a quick 21E search. And all that is typing in your address and a search radius, and up pops all of the sites, whether they be open or closed, and their list and their source. Gas station X located at, 500 Chief Justice Cushing Highway. And you know how far you are away from that former release. So it's just a desktop search, really,
Yeah.
looking 500 feet away.
No, I'm cool with it,
So that's
especially as I
why
read on.
you would ask, so I
Did
think
we-
what
did
The
that
examples that
means.
were given, it's a good safe thing, yeah. Yeah, I don't think
Do we
it's.
want to go ahead and approve this permit?
We already did, didn't we?
I thought so, okay.
Yep, towards the end of December.
And we've had
we'll do that.
nobody fill one out.
Correct. And we haven't received any driller's logs either.
But you have
So
received some inquiries,
we have received some inquiries, yes.
but nobody went beyond the inquiries
Correct,
on either potable or irrigation.
correct. And I think to some degree it might be weather driven, because within a couple of weeks of those inquiries, we started to have the storms. So that's a possibility.
You two want this permit back?
Sure. Thank you, Sue.
Any other comments on the regulations?
Just yeoman's job on it.
Before I forget, your new bylaws,
Oh,
I'm trying to keep those active and up to date for you in your packages, so those were just released last week. So what I'll do is I'll make changes, and since you know I love colors, I will probably make the changes in track changes, so you can just hone in on the things that I changed and see if they've adequately addressed all of the
What
comments.
goes next?
Well, whatever track changes decides we should have them in color. It's usually red or blue, depending on whether you're the first commenter or the second.
These are brand new?
Brand new, they just came out last week. So then the last thing that I kind of want to bring to your attention and review with all of you, since I was not here during initial implementation of the fats, oils, and grease regulation, is just to kind of go over a couple of questions to make sure that I can fully understand them so that we can give guidance to the folks who are either a little behind in compliance or those that are looking ahead to becoming compliant by the required deadline. So, all of the largest establishments with 100 or more seats or 1,000 square feet or more should have been in compliance by the end of 2013. Establishments with 50 to 99 seats or 500 to 1,000 square feet needed to be in compliance by the end of this past year, and everyone else needs to be in compliance by the end of 2015. So we're getting several inquiries from the smaller places about what do they need to do. So I want to make sure that I fully understand the intention of these regs, with the first being they are a requirement regardless of whether you are on septic or sewer, with of course septic being a requirement for Title V, having grease trap. So there should be no issues with folks on septic, in theory. Right?
No issues with the town, you mean? It's just with themselves.
Right, so in theory, they should already be in compliance
Yes.
if they're on
Yes.
septic
Yes.
because they're following
Yes.
Title V. Hopefully that's the case. And then the big question that we're getting, that I want to make sure that we are accurate about, is when are you required to go outside and install an external beneath the paving grease trap? Is it everyone? Every grease trap, regardless of size, should be external and beneath the ground surface? And then if they want to do something else or have limitations, such as, the establishment that came before us on Front Street, they would need to come in and request a variance. Is that correct?
Yes, if they, well, I'll let you answer that.
I think some of the businesses, as you said, an example on Front Street, don't have any real estate to put a grease trap on
Yeah.
outside. It's town-owned land, and you just can't do it. So, yeah, I think a variance
Yeah.
would definitely be granted in a case like that. We have to, and it's going to be a best-case scenario of what they can do.
Yeah, I mean, that's the requirement, and if they can't fulfill that requirement without any hardship, they can come in front of us, and I think we made it known that we were gonna be amenable to making it work.
Okay,
No,
so.
no, that's the rule, but if you can't do it, you have to come to us, if you're not gonna do it externally.
Okay, so just to make sure, so whether you have an establishment with 500 seats that's in the middle of nowhere, and in theory could put something in the ground, and you have a little takeout place that's also in the middle of nowhere, both of them, under the regulations, would be required to put in an external grease trap. If they wanted to do something else, both types of establishments would need to come before the board and request a variance. I'm just looking for scale.
Yeah, I think so, but I
Yeah,
I don't think this,
Well,
in that general, I don't think, and I don't think if they're out in the middle of nowhere and they got plenty of land, I think they're kind of held by the law.
Okay.
Well, it could be ledge, I mean, but.
I'm just thinking of, the little takeout place that makes, cold sub sandwiches and serves drinks and, maybe a hot dog here or there. Is everybody have the requirement to have an external grease trap, or is something beneath their sink, their prep sink or whatever,
Well,
enough?
take a case like,
So.
and I don't even know if Nellie goes in there, Ronnie Shones, they're making sandwiches. or-
She does. Yeah, she does go in there.
She does, so I'm guessing they have a grease trap on their sink, because, his plot of land there, the corner that he's on, well, it's not conducive to digging up, putting something on the street, unless it was already there, which I don't think Ronnie put one in years ago, I don't know.
So using that as an example, in order to be in compliance, what he's doing right now is not in compliance unless he requests a variance?
Don't even want to go there.
But that's what people are asking,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
what
yeah,
do they
yeah.
need to do to be in
Yeah.
compliance?
I hate to use a business as an example, I do, without a plan or anything, we just don't know.
I think
But I
that-
understand what you're saying, just
So let's,
hypothetically.
so this tiny little takeout place,
Yeah.
Mom and Pop X, already has a little grease trap under their sink, because they make sandwiches and they have a hot dog here and there that they serve. Do they have the requirement to have an external grease trap? And if so, so basically the little thing that they're using right now does not get them compliance unless they come in for a variance. Then it could potentially get them compliance. Is that correct?
I would say so.
Okay,
I mean,
that's what I wanted to
The board was
understand.
keenly
Okay.
aware
Yeah, in general.
that of people's business conditions and hardships, that we had to start somewhere and move it forward. And knowing that there was going to be a lot of problems, and there were existing systems, whether they were working or not. And it was really to get control of the fats and oils. And we knew there was going to be a lot of exceptions or a lot of reasons people were then going to come in front of the board.
Okay.
I mean, I think that was the board's mindset, right?
I think so, yeah, that was the,
Because I can, we're fielding calls from those tiny little shops that do take out, or just do catering, and they want to know what they need to do. And I want to make sure that the correct answer is, you need to have an external grease trap. If you cannot do that, you need to request a variance and come before the board with your proposed plan of what you want to do instead and why you can't install the external.
Correct.
Okay.
Because right now, we don't know what they're doing.
Okay.
So it's more of an accountability, it becomes an accountability issue. So I think you've summed it up well there.
Got it. That's we've been trying to catch up in a phased approach to making sure that folks are in compliance or are well on the right track to compliance for a lot of food-related things. Before the end of the year last year, we worked with folks to make sure that they were either in or quickly got into compliance with Serve Safe and allergen awareness training. As of this past February, just a few weeks ago, all of our establishments in Scituate became in compliance with Choke Safe. Some had expired or were recently expired, so we hosted with Mark Donovan from an EMT from Scituate Fire Department. He hosted a training so that everyone could get up to speed. So this is the next thing that we're trying to, help establishments catch up with if they aren't already there. We want to make sure that obviously we're giving the right information.
and it does, for sure, come down to public health, just for the fact that we had sewer lines that were getting clogged, and we had to do something about it. And it's the same with the septic systems. You can't have septic systems failing and overflowing. And grease is a major factor in failure. So, and that's the point that drove the whole thing. So whatever they do is better than what we got today.
Great. Perfect. Thank you.
All right, fats, oils, and greases. So we're all set? You good?
Yep, good,
Awesome.
thank you.
Administrative invoice approvals and meeting minutes. Do you guys want to take a minute and we'll read these minutes and we can comment or approve?
I'm sorry about that, I don't know what I did.
think so. It's here. Somewhere. I had one. Thank you. And my name sewed in the back of my shirt. In case I get lost.
I might think about an emergency contact number too.
Yeah. Please feed and water at least twice a day.
I like the vagueness.
You too.
This is-
Let's say Mrs., not
I don't
Mrs.
think anybody does that anymore.
Huh?
I don't know, is it like not politically correct?
I just like the vagueness.
I mean, I don't care.
Vagueness. I like being vague.
I'm just asking.
Yes, the proper designation of vaguenesses.
Not anymore.
Just that.
No, like you said, it's choice to be vague or not. That's-
It is.
Absolutely. Absolutely in business. You get in trouble for hitting the wrong one. So it's actually, the fallback is miss. Yeah, you get in trouble that way. You don't know if somebody's separated or divorced, or they don't want to know, or whose name they've taken or not taken, or...
I'll answer to most anything, so it doesn't really matter to me. So yes, we are both Mrs.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. So I'll send around revised, well, regs and track changes.
Oh, we're gonna do this next time?
What's that?
We're gonna do this next time?
No, I can do it right now if you want. I read it. You read? You see any changes? Any?
No.
I like to
Additions.
change it to unanimous.
Where?
Um,
Just tell me.
Whenever we vote, if we all vote,
Okay,
all in favor, unanimous.
sure. No problem.
I think that reduces the vagueness.
Okay.
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 All right. A motion to accept the meeting minutes of February 12th, 2015.
Second?
Second, I'll second that.
The second the motion, you made the motion, you seconded, all those in favor?
Aye. Any motion to adjourn the meeting?
Okay.
Done. Boom.